Hello, my friends. Doing a 10:15 AGR episode today. This one is a little bit interesting because it's not what I prepared. I'm in the process of thinking this other one a little bit better, a little bit all the way through. I'll give you just a hint, a taste of what I'm examining, seeing, and what may or may not be a future episode. But this, again, heads I win, tails you lose situation that I see manifesting in social media, YouTube. I can see a plot being hatched, just like, I saw Q early on. I was never said anything publicly because I thought, well, let's just see how it goes, out of curiosity more than anything. I think the first guy that really called it dead on was Montegraph. Cheers to you, good sir. And I believe one of the other ones that called it very, very early on was Jeff Rentz, and if I recall correctly, it was JP Farrell also had figured it out very, very soon, very, very quickly. And who else figured it out first? He was doing a very thorough analysis for rents. It must have been, I don't know, it'll come to me. Anyway, I can see a whole other psyop in play right now. It's also fairly easy at this point to identify, who's the shill, who's the agent, and they're being paid by all different sorts of entities, whether they be government entities that are justifiably looking for ways to prevent crime and prevent people from getting hurt. Totally understandable. Or counterintelligence, where they want to try and keep technological leaks from coming out and being abused by other people that would steal that intellectual property. You also have lobbyist or lobby type interests that are out here, whether they be for the oil industry or for the NRC or for nuclear power or whatever. They have their own little army of disinformation agents. And then you've got lower tier disinformation agents, some of them being foreign actors, which there's a whole cadre of them, many of which are in the floating around in the religious circles, people that claim to be religious, and they may be, but they definitely have another agenda. I was able to dig down deep and find a good number of these and how they all connected together, where they possibly may have given away more than they expected to give away. You also have, CIA types. You also have people that engineer psyops and have been for a long time, and they come a lot of times out of the writing community because they're the creatives. So who am I referring to most specifically? That would be Pechenik. So because he wrote books that I was familiar with way early on. Ghost wrote some things under Clancy's name. I think one was called Mirror Image, and the other, what was the other Pechenik book that I had read early on? They were good. They were good. He's a gifted writer. I mean, phenomenal, just like Clancy was. He's a phenomenal writer. I got to give it to Pechenik for his skill. He crafts an amazingly wonderful tale, thoroughly enjoyable. But I don't remember the other one right offhand that I read, because it's probably been, over a decade, 15 years or something like that since I read those books. So, and, he's out there writing these psyop sorts of things. So is Corsi. I mean, but these are things I'm telling you that you already know, okay? That you should already know by now. So I'm not giving anything away here. And the reason that I'm hesitant to talk about those types of things, to point these things out, because somebody might be trying to do something good. They might actually be trying to accomplish a greater goal. And if it's a counterintelligence work or something like that, I'm not going to, take my big foot and step right in the middle of whatever they're working on. So typically, I'll stay out of that business. So even if I did see something like Q early on, about the same time as Montegraph, and I knew Montegraph, he was right. It had all the hallmarks of it. But I said, well, to what end? To what end? Of course, it's a psyop, but what is it to eventually achieve? What is the end game? What was the strategy for it? I wanted to see where it was going to go, so I didn't step right in the middle of something that potentially could be worthwhile. Now, things based on deception, I don't think that that's a particularly good way to go, because, what is it? One op from another, from another, from another to keep people distracted? Looks like that's pretty exhausting to have to try and come up with the next thing that everybody's going to be interested in and distracted by, other than the issues that are really critical to us as not only a human family, but we Americans more specifically, and on a local level, what connects us to our communities, and some things that we should really be discussing and addressing to get a better sense of what is going on in the world. So we see these same themes repeated over and over and over again, no matter which way you look. Even when you try and search and you look deep, you find just so much what I call fuzzing, which is fuzzing is one way I would describe it, where you just kind of take a huge mass of information and spew it all out there, so it dominates the spectrum of your illusion of choice, to make it more difficult to find the things that you're looking for. So it's a battle between the social engineers who are tasked with that, tasked with the responsibility of coming up with things that are going to distract people from real issues, and still try and maintain the illusion of choice, or that we actually have something called freedom of speech here in the former United States of America. So, well, I wouldn't call it the former United States of America. This is the United States of America. I love my country. There's no doubt about it. I love the Constitution, and I love the constitutional principles, and it pains me greatly to see that many, even some employed by the government itself, would try and undermine their constitutional responsibilities. Even as citizens, our responsibility is to our country and to uphold the principles in the Constitution. Nowhere on earth had there ever been a nation like it, nor do I think there ever will be again. So yes, I am very guarded about America, and I will do whatever is possible to educate people so they understand how important it is to look at those principles. But when you have corporations go out and undermine the principles that are right there in the Constitution, and I'm speaking of free speech here, when they say, oh, well, they're a corporation, they're a private entity, they have the right to do such and such because they're a private entity. Well, I thought, corporations were given personage, which in and of itself is a very bizarre principle. But if it does have all the rights and voting power of a person, which is insane. A corporation is not even a thinking, it's not a human. So Supreme Court is just so daft, it's unbelievable. But that's those seeds of fascism in there. And then you also say, well, the corporation can do whatever it wants because it owns it, it's property. But that right there fundamentally undermines the spirit of the law that is the Constitution of the United States of America. And when you have all of these monopolies, And antitrust, there's no such thing as antitrust law anymore, seemingly. When they dominate what is essentially a public utility, which has been constructed and paid for over and over and over again. It was constructed by my grandparents, invented far earlier, maintained by our communities, maintained by our tax dollars that keep these grids running, and yet the corporation that owns, whether it be Google or YouTube, I think both they're one and the same, are they not? To say, well, we don't have to obey the Constitution. You know, we can do whatever we want. We're a private company. It's our private property. It's our intellectual property, whatever. Well, you've ceased to become a social media platform, and you've become essentially an editor. You've become a publisher, which should be subject to a whole nother set of laws. But we're living in an age where apparently we are in a post-nation state world where certain entities believe themselves to be above the principles that we Americans hold dear and that create and bind us together as a country, as a singular people. And if you destroy, disrupt, and undermine these principles, like the Bill of Rights, and the government finds it permissible to let them do that, then that destroys our national identity and undermines what it is to be American. And then you can see the psyop beyond that unfolding where, oh, America has failed, capitalism has failed. No, my friends, it's those seeds of fascism. And it happens, it turns around over and over again. But it's disappointing to see that our government can't just say, well, I understand from a technical standpoint that the Bill of Rights applies to the government and what the government can and cannot do. That's what the Constitution is. It's a framework for our government. But when we analyze the essence of the thing, or the spirit of the law, of, number one, of freedom of the press, freedom of speech. See, they bought up all the newspapers. They buy up all the television stations. You know, they track everything in the mail via the Amerithrax scam. And then they go full-blown Soviet censorship on platforms, and then yet somehow some person can find it excusable that they do it because it's a private company. No, the spirit of the law. What do we stand for as a nation? What principles do we stand for as a nation? Freedom of speech? Yes, that's one of them. Big one. Rule number one. Okay, that's what helps us evolve as a society. We could have such rapid evolution in political thinking and solutions if we are free to discuss. Just like Montegraph says, I like this phrase of his. He says, if you cannot speak freely, you simply are not free. Just like I say, if there is no economic freedom, there can be no freedom. So, okay, I understand the trade-offs here. I understand, you know, the important work of counterintelligence. But to purposefully fuzz and obfuscate the issues that Americans are really trying to discuss with one another. I mean, I released a certain video not that long ago called Cheese Combo, and after that I saw across a variety of different ways that I could measure my view counts, I saw it get slammed. Now, I don't believe for 1 second any of the numbers that YouTube puts out. They can defend it and call it whatever they want. It's a glitch, because really, frankly, I don't care what their little numbers say, because I don't believe them. They've already shown me and demonstrated over and over and over again that through either by incompetence or the software itself being hacked or whatever, yes, that these numbers are not real. They're totally manufactured. So we see that all the time. We take screenshots of it. We've gathered all the evidence for it. So it didn't surprise me at all to see them hammer down my numbers over the cheese combo, you know, even on trivial stuff like Fallout videos. Again, I don't care. I don't give a rat's behind about whatever my numbers say that they are. I know what the truth is, and if you hear me, you hear me. This is just one man's opinion, talking, discussing, and enjoying the discussion. So I think I have uncovered another, well, I know I've uncovered another thing, and I'm not quite ready to step in the middle of it. So I thought I would take it in a different direction today and point out something called talent harvesting. And I call these the Peeping Reavers, because you've got a couple of different entities on YouTube who I could specifically name, but out of courtesy, I will not, because I am not precisely sure of what their objectives are. If I become irritated in some way, I might pass along that message. I certainly wouldn't be doing it through the medium of YouTube. Now, would I? No, I would not. But for the time being, I'll keep it to myself. I'll keep my suspicions and my speculations to myself. But there are a cadre of social engineers that will go out and they'll examine the data, if you will, like what people are interested in, what's trending, what could possibly be trending next, what is a way that we can fuzz out so we can present an illusion of choice. So how much time, it's all calculation. Just with any engineering, social engineering is the same. Calculate, all right, well, how much time does the average person have to watch YouTube or wants to engage in these things? So what is going to be something that is going to pull their attention away? How many times can they go through the cycle before they understand that it's not really choice and the algorithm is not good? It's actually intended, it's designed to present an illusion of choice, but offer you really nothing important. And the corporatists put things on a specific schedule. So if you don't meet that schedule of production, you're not going to get ranked. And for me, to hell with it. I don't want to participate on a corporate schedule. If I did, I'd go back into the business and work the 9 to 5. I'm not going to beat myself to death every day or be one of these people that's just a parrot that's going to pick up a little bit of news from Zero Hedge or whatever articles and read them without critically thinking about what they mean, how they fit together, what's true and what's not, before I just editorialize a comment on the end of each article that's put out. A parrot is, I think, maybe a shade above a worm, but that's about it. That's about it. I mean, the lowest is the disinformation agent. Only a gradation, a hair's breadth above the disinformation agent is the shill, and then only well, actually, the shill is lower than the disinformation agent, because the disinformation agent actually has to be creative in some way. And then just a slight bit above that is the people that are trying to fuzz out whatever I said earlier. Yeah, so I'm just going to spit this out here because, well, I want to, and I want to get on to other things today. So the Reavers, well, they also do talent harvesting. So say you're a writer, or I think this is actually most observable in comedy. So what your big name writers and big name comedians will go and do is look through YouTube, find some funny material. The guy's hilarious. Oh, you'll never see him. You'll never see him on YouTube. But what they'll do is they'll write down their jokes and they'll memorize them and then retell them later. I think they do that shit in comedy clubs all the time. Excuse my language. they'll run around in little small acts, little small guys, steal their material, and woo, look at them, you know. Now, I understand that the progression of ideas comes from absorbing other people's ideas and then either rephrasing or exploring those ideas in a new and different way, or your own perception of that idea, or a combination of other ideas. It is important to give the person that had this idea originally some credit, but who's to know if that was really their original idea? I guess one of the old expressions is all writers are thieves. Well, maybe so. And it would, unless we were actually writing the book and footnoting everything and making the references to where we pulled this information from, we can't just sit here all day long and say, well, I got this from him and this from him and this from him, unless it was one particularly important part. Now, it's like I did a video, History's Hidden Gold Heist. Well, I was seeing some things that J.P. Farrell had already discussed in something that I had watched, but I didn't really, at that time, I didn't really know who he was or what he was writing about and the body of his material. And you know, sometimes when you see something, you kind of think it's your own idea because you saw something else that you really did see that made sense to you at an earlier time. So maybe you thought it was your own original idea, or maybe the two of you just had a similar idea. But there were things and concepts that I didn't know about, and I'm not certain if I credited him in that video. Because he definitely goes into detail about history's hidden gold heists. Now, I do mention him later as one of the authors that I thoroughly appreciate and enjoy. So I hope I could have made up, because as we all go through the YouTube experience, as we all go through life, we learn and we progress, and we want to be able to do the right thing. And giving credit where credit is due is very important. Which brings us to a whole nother thing about copyright and the abuse of copyright and what intellectual property is really all about. Like, for example, if I'm walking by a radio in Fallout and all of a sudden the person that bought the rights to the song of a person that's long dead, like Sony tried to buy up all the classical music in order to profit, or to put an ad in front of the entirety of my Fallout video, which has taken years to curate the code from a number of different mod authors who have all participated in creating something new, which is the essence of the work, not that radio song I walked by. And I find it an absolute, well, it's disgusting, but if I were being more articulate today, I find it repugnant. I find it disgusting, okay, for them to do that, and then claim that, oh yeah, that's the essence of the thing. Or if some young kids are getting together and dancing or something to a popular song and creating a new dance, is it the song that they're after? No, they're presenting a dance. Oh, that's denied to you. Your contribution of creating something new on something that was released and public, that's the new thing. That's the thing they're trying to present. They're not trying to represent the song over a crappy radio. They're showing us their movement, their dance. And this type of thing, this money, we own this, we own that, in the copyright sphere is stifling to people in the creative arts. Beyond that, the Reavers, or the talent harvesters. Oh, and they're out there. And what they do is they go and, like I said, for the comedians, authors and television show producers and political scientists will try and get a hold of the data, or go and look at some person's specific idea. They say, oh, that's a good one. Let's write all about that and write that down, okay? And go on about that, even though, well, it wasn't their original idea, or maybe somebody had told some big and grand and wonderful story, and yet they stole it and wrote it into a book. I remember myself when I was, but see, I got past it because at the time I was in the 6th grade in what they call a GT program, Gifted and Talented, or TAG, Talented and Gifted program, where a guy by the name of Matthew wrote a poem about cheese. Okay, he was like, I think I still remember a piece of it. He said, cheese is wonderful cheese. Before we eat it, it goes to a, no, cows make it and it goes to a pump. Before we eat it, it's a sticky lump. It's cheese, wonderful cheese. And the whole thing was about cheese. Well, he had just scribbled this down, and then I took that writing and promoted it as if it were my own. That was plagiarism. I was disgusted with myself later. But see, he had developed it. It was so easy for him to come by, and he was going to discard it. So I said, yeah, whatever. I'm going to take this and capitalize on it myself. But I was in the 6th grade, so I got a little bit past that. I hope we can all get a little bit past that. It's 6th grade level stuff here, folks. So, building on an idea and being a peeping Reaver, I think we know in our hearts what's the right thing and the wrong thing when it comes to this. And it's on an unimaginable scale. And a lot of it is applied to disinformation to keep people distracted from the issues that we have already figured out the solutions to. I went through for many years and analyzed what I knew the mathematical certainty of economic collapse was going to be and what the solutions would be. Great deal of study. Almost a way out, you know, a plan. Or even if it didn't go my way, what was plan B and C and D and E and all the way. So economic collapse to me, not a problem. I can handle that, get by it, and not only get through it, but walk out on the other side even better. So saw it coming, mathematical certainty. So work that out. Who gives a rat's ass? Because they're not going to let us discuss it. They're not even going to let us point out how farcical the whole thing is. That's what the cheese combo was hammered for. I think it was just a little too clear. So, I don't know. I'll keep this short. Just be aware of something called talent harvesting. The Reavers. The Peeping Reavers. And sometimes, and this is the greatest flaw in any evil genius, is what they'll do is knowing that they know. They don't know that you know, but you know they know, and that's what they do. You may make a presentation for the Reavers and watch it play. One of my favorite things I like to say all the time is, if you do it right, it is as if you have done nothing at all. Now, in these times, I don't really care, because I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't already know, and hopefully I'm going to tell you some things that you don't know. I'm tired of lies. I'm sick and tired of the lies and the bull crap and the purposeful deception and distraction, because I thought to myself about our celestial friends. You know, why would the human civilization be failing? And how far could we have progressed if we were able to cooperate and communicate? If we just had the barriers of lies and disinformation and censorship removed from us, how quickly could we evolve? And we open source a lot of things. We could evolve very quickly. I remember when the internet was kind of new to everybody, and I was just a kid playing back then. How rapidly it would progress, and now this whole thing goes on this, Iron Curtain style internet censorship lockdown. We keep trying to create a new place to be free, and then lo and behold, a little bit later come in the Peeping Reavers, and then they must say that you cannot be free. You can only listen to what I have to say. Pay attention to Q. Pay attention to, well, is the Senate voting on BDS or anti-BDS? Frankly, who gives a rat's ass? If I want to talk about Israel, which frankly I don't really give two shits about, I mean, I kind of feel for the people that are in a very tough spot, put in that spot probably by the Nazis, who are all sneaking around out here. What was Prescott Bush, for goodness sake? He was a Nazi collaborator. George Soros, the straw man. How did he come by all of his money? Does anybody ever think about that? Well, supposedly he took all the British stock market in one day and now has an infinite pool of money to spend on whatever he wants. So the British, let's not fail to point that out. And what's George Soros? He's supposedly a Hungarian Jew, but what is he? A Nazi collaborator. All right. Oof. And then, it's like Israel is a client state of the United States. The BDS, whatever, that's another distraction, and probably another way that they can sit up there and try and chip away at yet another constitutional bill of rights. Try and chip away at it again. They'll put it out, they throw it out there and see if it sticks to the wall. And if nobody complains about it, they go ahead and go on with it. And that's been their modus operandi. Not to uphold the law, not to believe in the law, not to defend the law, but to see where they can get away with it if nobody notices. That's demented. Friggin' demented. What is wrong with those people? And to actually serve in government. Travesty. Has even one of them stepped up and just said the things that are freaking obvious? I'm tired of the presidential elections. I'm tired of anything that comes out of the federal government. I'm sick to death of hearing anything about whatever the distraction is with the wall. Think about it. $1 trillion. The budget for the military was something like $800 billion, which is very, very close to $1 trillion. Okay. Now, how much is $1 trillion? Well, I guess if we took and spent $1 million ever since the day that Jesus Christ was born, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, all the way until today, $1 million a day, every year, we still wouldn't have reached 1 trillion. Oh, and they lost 21 trillion. Please give me a break. So, can anybody not point out how ludicrous all this is? And then it's just this whole Israel all the time. Jeez, it's a tiny little spot that really has no strategic significance that I can think of. And what are they? They're a vassal. They're a client state of the British. Always have been, probably always will be. And as an American, I'm kind of feeling like a client state of the British right now, which is pissing me off to no end. So, I don't know. Beware the Peeping Reavers. It's been Hank. Catch you on the flip side.